Welcome back to the Jeremiah Show. My special guest today is multi-platinum, Grammy-nominated writer, producer, and health visionary Frank Fitzpatrick. He's people talk to me about health, I typically get anxious, and I don't, I don't want to, I don't want any lectures. But you could lecture me all day long, Frank, about your type of health, which is tied to the music, and it's my favorite kind of health. I'll talk about it, and I'll follow your regimen all day long. So welcome back. We're listening to we just listened to Jill Scott on the way out to break, and I want to know how it made you feel and how you're feeling right now. This one I loved, Lena, featuring is it Buka Wise?
Buka Wise, yeah, Buka
Buka
Wise, yeah,
Wise.
out of Houston.
Buka
Yeah.
Wise is amazing. I don't know how I've not heard of him before, but I really love this song and Lena's the vocals from both of them. But Buka Wise, I thought when it came on, I'm like, it's like the ghost of
Tupac or
Tupac,
something.
right? I heard him. I heard his ghost in there. And that's a big compliment. So anyway, we're listening to that right now, and let's talk more about, which is fascinating to me, music and amplified future and amplified your companies. By the way, you can go to amplifiedfuture.com. And before I move on and get back into my questioning here, Frank, you mentioned that you had a website that you could send people to pre-save Soul Vision on November 20th.
Absolutely, Jeremiah. Thank you for asking. And so if they want to, so today the Soul Vision, the first part debuts, which is Neo, which is the Neo Soul Spotlight we've been talking about, and you just listened to a little bit of, and then upcoming on November 20th will be a full collection of a broader range of artists, will include. We'll talk a little bit more, I think, in the next segment. But if you go to soulvision.community and you sign up for you can sign up to listen to on any of your favorite music services to the album that's out now, and you'll get notified as well when the next one's coming forth, so you don't have to write it down or remember. So it's soulvision.community, and it'll take you into the pathway of soul and healing. So
I signed up, and you heard me complain about how many emails I get. It's probably my fault, but
yes, I understand.
I'm happy to sign up for this one, and I already got a newsletter today from you, so which is very interesting. I was reading it right before we came on air, and I didn't get to get all the way through, but I'm gonna have to go to it after we're finished. So we're talking about with Frank, how we can use music to awaken your creativity, improve your well-being, deepen your relationships, amplify your true potential. I like all of those bullet points, and I want to, if we can pick them apart one by one. But I asked you before we went to break to listen to the Jill Scott song and kind of maybe hopefully have the same experience that I did. And on your site, Frank, you talk about after you listen to music, pay attention to how you felt before, during, and after listening, singing or playing, and note your mood state when you start and when you're done. And I think that's a really important point to remember. The music is supposed to be fun and enjoyable, but I do think this is a nice exercise to what is it? What would that do for you though? Just to know that I can go to this song, I can go to this artist. That's how it made me feel. What happens after? What happens if you follow that tip?
Great. That's for your audience to give you a note there. You're going to get some response.
Yeah, no, I hope so. But I was just asking you, what do you benefit from following that tip? Like compiling?
Yeah. So in terms of
what you love, how it makes you.
So music that you love, we talked a little bit about preference before we went to the break, right? So if you're, listening to music you love, especially music that two things I would say that you fell in love with during a certain developmental stage of your life, maybe between the age of 11 and 21 or 25, when your hormones are, very active, and you're producing neurochemicals at a much higher level, and you're developing neural pathways at a much higher level. So the stuff that you fall in love with then gets implanted into your brain and your memory and your subconscious at a much deeper level. So when you hear it again, it's going to bring back whatever a lot of those original emotions, joy and connection, maybe. So that's also why you see people, like, you go to the Rolling Stones concert, and it's, even though the music's very relevant now, it's usually the people who are listening to it between the age of 12 and 25, right? So whatever generation they did that in. So that's one piece in terms of, it doesn't, so with soul, when you're listening to like soul music or Jill Scott, I mean, what we did in the neo soul movement, and what I do in a lot of the work that I try to bring a soul context into, we're going back to what they were thinking about, what they are doing, like in the soul movement. So and I say soul across many genres, so you think Bob Marley to Curtis Mayfield to Stevie Wonder, kind of the intentional artists that were trying to create good in the world through their music, right? And so you bring those elements around that created inspiration during hard times and evolution that we've known for quite a long time, and you bring those into new and contemporary forms of music. Those are all ingredients that are implanted into this music, so they're going to bring that out to you naturally, if you have a connection with that. And even if you don't have a connection with, we're in a new evolution of, you could be, somebody might listen to that, it might be the first time they ever heard anything that was soul or neo soul. And ideally, if I've done my job right, they will still have a good feeling, and they'll still create some of those feelings, but not to the level of which you would if you had those prior connections, maybe, or the music you love. So I always invite people to find their own soul music,
Yeah.
and to elevate their soul force, because when they use it, there isn't really, I always say, if we look at the human performance and human potential field, and peak performance and the science around flow and creativity and the science around health and well-being, there isn't any area of your life where you do something that you can't stack music into it, whether it's connections with people, whether it's communicating with your son or your parents, whether it's your chefs hosting dinners, so many great ones you have on the show. Yeah. Whether it's that you want to sleep better, you want to focus better, that you want to do all these things in your life, but we really haven't been taught that, right? So the goal is kind of switching the conversation that beyond entertainment into a way that, you could take almost any area of your life. You could say, hey, I want to improve my relationship with my kid, or I'm having a hard time focusing, or I just can't sleep at night. And you could ask me any of those, and I could prescribe how you could use medicine to amplify and improve that area of your life.
You could prescribe musical medicine or
yes,
medicine.
You could say, use music in this way. And so it's a little bit of like you said earlier, like people go listen to a song, right? And they can shift their mood. We know that because of what we talked about, all the neurochemicals and the things that it does. And then if it's something you already love, it takes you back into a space like almost immediately and drops off whatever, toxic energy you were kind of experiencing beforehand, right?
Right.
But you can also, if you stack that, we call this in like peak performance and the flow states, if you can stack that with movement, so call movement dance or running or exercise, or you can stack it with being with somebody you care about or with people you care about, then you have another level of so all these are kind of triggering these, for lack of a better word, these, neurochemical cocktails. And music just amplifies each of these things that do it. So the movement triggers your mitochondria, you have more energy in the cells, you have more focus, you have more clarity. If you have music to it, if you do it with somebody you love, all these things. So we call that stacking, right? So if you go out so you've done it, everybody's done it, but they don't necessarily do it in a conscious way.
That's what I was going to ask you next, Frank. Is part of your lessons and part of your expanding the awareness of all the healing powers of music, the music that we maybe understand, we may feel, but not really connect the two. Why do I feel better? Is part of the training being conscious of going to music when you may need it, or having music at the ready for when you go through the different ups and downs of a daily life? Is that part of this, of being conscious?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we've been sold a bit of a short bill of goods in music, because we've been taught that it only has value in entertainment or performance, right? And then we discover and we fall into these ways that it helps us through our life kind of by default, because if you live long enough, you're going to discover the music you love, you're going to see how it changes. But we've never actually been taught the way that you would teach somebody how to meditate or do some other mindfulness practice, how to turn to music in a practical way in a kind of self-prescribing way to accomplish the outcome you want to accomplish, right? And that outcome may be more creative, more focused, more connected, healthier, more energized, more relaxed, so.
Yeah. Well, let's go through this list. I think I'm gonna maybe answer my own questions and correct me if I'm wrong, but you can use music to awaken creativity. So that's I've noticed that a lot of times I'm interviewing music artists, and I sit down to write the script and kind of get to know them a little bit. And I listen to, like I did today with your album. I
Right.
listen to the music, and and all of a sudden I'm like halfway, 2 pages in with this intro, and all of a sudden it sparked some sort of creativity, right? Well, I don't know what I'm going to talk about yet, and then it comes. Improving your well-being, having music on when you're cooking, when you're painting, when you're writing. I think that all sparks creativity for sure.
Right.
Improving well-being, and I think that just makes you feel better. Deepening relationships, I think you touched on it, but listening to something with a song that maybe expresses what you can't to a loved one, or maybe creates a moment between you and a loved one that is an unspoken powerful wave that just surrounds you in sound. Would that be, or do you have other examples how you can
Jeremiah, absolutely. Those are three great ways to use music. There's more, and so let me pick one so I can pick one that you want me to address. Let me I can address creativity because you used it this morning, so it might as well be practical to you. You're a very creative guy, and sometimes stuff doesn't flow the way you want it to flow. So if we look at flow and creativity, then basically you can't be creative if you're stuck in your judgment mode of your mind. You have to kind of move your back into your default mode, which is what music helps us go into. So we lose the judgment, the critic. And when we get the judgment, the critic out of the way, anybody who creates and is an author or making music or something, then it opens up this floodgate of stuff to come through more naturally, because we're not trying to protect ourselves or judge ourselves. So that's actually, it's not just a metaphor. That's something that actually happens in the brain. So when you put that music on it, you were all freaked out by the red zone in your inbox, the hemorrhaging inbox, we call it. So it's and to get that out of your mind, you had to get out of your frontal cortex, and you had to move into a space where that wasn't occupying and triggering cortisol and all these other areas of your system that were taking your brain back to that have to survive the Malayan here. So, and then you get music helps you your system settle into a relaxed mode. It helps calm your system, and it gets you more into the default network where you can,
which is also probably better for health too, right?
Absolutely
calming you, that stress and that anxiety that people have. God, there's so much that you do, Frank, that you work with children and work bringing music to children and schools and instruments and all these great things that you do. But is there a certain type of, and I bring that up because children, I think a lot of the schools have lost their music programs, which I think that's the last thing you would want to take away, but it's one of the first that we did. And
right.
Children, is there a certain time of age that's best to reach the brain of a child with music? Is there any scientific fact that backs that up? It seems like it seems kind of common sense, maybe, but I don't know.
Absolutely. Never too young, never too old for music. So there's different things to do at different phases. So you can affect children with music. The ear is one of the first organs that develops in the womb. Or a sense of hearing,
That's
I should say.
interesting. I didn't know that.
So rhythm we're attuned to because we're already hearing the heartbeat all the time, right? So, and you know how things are amplified underwater. So it's like, the sound of the voice of your mother is always going to be like the soothing, like, unless you have some traumatic, something later. But so from the time in the womb, and then there's a real critical age, like 7 to 8, in the formation of where our brain shifts in its formation quite a bit from the highest range level of neuroplasticity into a more structured way, and education changes a lot. So good to do stuff in that age. And then 11 to 12 is really critical because it's the formation of identity. And you'd be surprised of how much we attach our identity to music because we hang out with the people who like the same music, and those become our friends. We actually affiliate, or have an affiliation with an artist, and they become a persona of like a heroic persona for us. So there's all these things that, and our ability to whether we can play music or not play music, because the way society only says, you're good if you can perform and be successful, and not so good if you can't. All these things have an effect on our identity. And so in terms of children, those are kind of key ages to answer that, Jeremiah. But the one thing I would want to say is, and you touched upon it earlier, is so imagine if we taught like from 6, 7 years old, and kids can get this. Kids are pretty smart at that age. That kids, they help them, like if they want to focus, they can use music this way. If they want to make friends, they can use music this way. If they're stressed and anxious, they can use music this way. If they want to do this, they don't have to be a performer. They don't have to take, these are the lessons, like the skill sets, life skill sets that we should be teaching to young kids so that they can reach in their pocket or go to their mother's phone or go to whatever anytime they need, and they go, I'm anxious. I need to, slow down and focus. Can you play this song? It always does that for me, So these, imagine if we were given those skills, we didn't have to wait until a midlife crisis to figure them all out, right? So that's what I would say for kids. Yeah.
Well, again, you've hit on a bunch of things. I've got so many questions for you, Frank, but I don't think I will have time to ask all of them. About being underwater, I didn't know that about the human ear and being in the womb, and that's one of the first things that develops that sound. I am so glad that they invented underwater speakers and tools. I love that. Right. So that's great. And I also wanted to mention being that music can help you physically as well. Is that would you say the closest connection would be that listening to music while you're working out, walking, that it just kind of motivates you? Because for me, like if I put on music and I go for a walk, before I know it, I've walked across the city and I didn't realize it. It's kind of motivating.
Got your 10,000 steps there.
Yeah, there I got my 10,000, 20,000 steps. I also wanted to point out, it's a great opportunity to mention our friend, Jonathan Platt, told me that one of his secrets to his success is that he walks for an hour every morning on the beach, listening to music. So Jonathan connected us. I just wanted to give Jonathan a little shout out there.
Yeah, we love Jonathan. Yeah,
it's a good absolutely.
Tip. So right. Jeremiah, you're right. So just to try to answer succinctly as I can, but that's where I was talking before about stacking things. So people misunderstand how the energy system works in the body. So they think that if they're tired, that they should just sit and rest. But actually, we have to create energy, and we create energy by moving. So, and because when we move, we tell our body, our brain, our mitochondria, our little energy factories inside the cells that they're still relevant, and we need them to keep working. And then so you notice when you go out for that walk, instead of coming home tired, you go out for that run, or you go to the gym, instead of coming home and wanting to go to bed, you're like, it's better than if the coffee was hot in the morning. So because you've turned on your cellular system, and you've turned it into an activation. And music, you know, if you want to train for the Olympics, you want to be better, you want to be a better runner, there's so many ways you can apply music to your performance. It does a couple of things. We won't get into all of them, but it's kind of lowers the psychological pain threshold. You can use rhythm to set a cadence, which you wouldn't otherwise keep if you didn't have that, you know, to help you kind of push your edge. You can use it for recovery is a big part of working out. But yeah, stacking anything you're doing, just like figuring out, okay, what charges me up, gets me off the couch and has me go for a run. The last thing during COVID, a lot of people, I was, coaching some leaders who are running big companies, and I was trying to help them out get through COVID, and how to deal with their energy and all the stress and their employees. Typically if they're women, they like to dance, men do too, but they don't admit it, so I said, yeah, the gym is closed, your yoga class is canceled, you don't have I said, but do you like to dance? I said, if you get up before lunch and you go do 1 3-minute dance, stacking movement, music, and joy with something you love, it'll change your neurochemical structure for the rest of the day.
That's wow, that's crazy. And
so, there's no excuse not to do a 3-minute dance.
I'm glad you brought that up about COVID, because I was reading one of your articles. You contribute to many magazines, and you really got into one of the articles was talking about COVID. And I think, we look at COVID as it changed all of our lives in many different ways, but in many different ways, we found the silver lining, being human beings as we are and looking for hope and positivity. We found it. And this is one of those that you just mentioned. This is one of those silver linings that came from COVID. And I like that you looked at it that way and that you approached it that way. Well, my special guest today is Frank Fitzpatrick. He's got a new album out today, Soul Vision Part 1, Neo. He's a wellness expert, a best-selling author, a Forbes contributor, and so much more. I'm going to list all of those on the other side of the break, but I wanted to, we're going to play some more music from this album. I feel like we're all hanging out today. We're having a good conversation. We get to share with Frank his new album with us. It feels like when you sit around in the living room and you got a great album on, and you're having some good conversation. That's what it feels like today. And I liked this song so much that I'm playing Buka Wise. I'm playing his part of the song here, Lena, featuring Buka Wise, and it's off the new album. The new album is Soul Vision Part 1, Neo, out today. Go. I don't. What do you follow on Spotify? I forget.
You just save, listen, or Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, wherever you listen to music, you can get it. Yeah. So.
And do that. Frank Fitzpatrick, he's my special guest, and I have a feeling that any question I ask you, is there a cure for that? You're going to say music.
Yes. Well, I mean, there's other cures, but I can give you a musical cure that'll help that prescription.
We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. We're going to talk about the new album when I come back. Be right back.
Great.